Just jobs?
Just skills?
Just transition?
Just Europe.
Welcome to Just Europe, a podcast series exploring the challenges we collectively face on the path to ensuring a fair and inclusive Europe in which no one is left behind as we transition towards modernising, decarbonising and digitalising our economies. We bring you open and honest conversations about education and training, managing change together, or regenerating disadvantaged communities and regions. We're also looking to identify new ideas and research needs to support people, strengthen our social model, and ensure a just transition for all. I'm your host, Katrina Sickle, and today we're asking, can we use AI to bridge gaps, or will it become another social divide? Can we harness AI to build a more inclusive education system, or will it become another tool that leaves the most vulnerable behind? Teachers and trainers are at the forefront of preparing children, young adults and workers for Europe's transition to a greener digital economy. They have the pressure to prepare learners for jobs that don't yet exist. Artificial intelligence, AI, promises help. Less paperwork, personalised learning, even virtual labs for hands-on skills. But fewer than 40% of educators feel ready to use AI, even though teachers are among the top 10% of professions most frequently exposed to it. We have three speakers for today's episode. Joining us remotely from Austria is Tobias Lai. He heads the Centre for Digitalisation in Lifelong Learning at the University for Continuing Education, KREMS. He is also project coordinator of TAICO, an EU Horizon Europe project exploring teacher AI complementarity. A warm welcome to you, Tobias.
Hello, and thank you.
Lovely to have you with us. Also joining us online from Italy is Diletta Heiskis. She is a postdoctoral researcher in philosophy and technology at the University of Milan, and she's also co-founder and co-CEO of Imminence, part of two Horizon Europe consortia.
Hi, happy to be here.
And a warm welcome to Niels Kersens, a researcher from Utrecht University. Niels leads the Reclaim Edu project, Reclaiming the Digital Classroom. Now, the project studies how European schools can reclaim control over their digital classrooms, with the aim of informing the creation of a digital autonomy framework for European public education. Welcome, Niels.
Hello. Thanks, Katrina.
So, Tobias, let me turn to you first. Estonia has recently begun to roll out a customised AI chat GPT edu across its secondary schools. A very bold experiment. Can you tell us a little bit more about it?
So Estonia has made through the AI Leap project basically an educational chatbot available for students and teachers in the first wave to quite a large number of students in the secondary education system. My observation of that initiative has been that it has prioritized speed and less institutional embedding. And so I think that maybe sustainability is going to be a bit of an issue.
So let me turn to you, Niels. What is the reality of the digital classroom in Europe today, and what does AI bring to the picture? And how is education in the Netherlands become increasingly digitalized?
Well, I think that Estonia's example reflects a broader European trend. So digital technology has become part of everyday classroom life across Europe over the whole past decade. And the Netherlands is an interesting example as well, because schools have a great deal of freedom to choose the technologies they use. But that has also allowed big tech platforms to become sort of the backbone of everyday education. So what AI is doing now is not creating a completely new sort of digital classroom, but it's transforming the one that was already there. And so the same platforms schools already used are now rapidly integrating AI tools, though mostly with limited input from teachers or the wider educational community.
Diletta, let me turn to you. You research sociocultural values that get embedded in the design of technology. So, in a nutshell, you work on biases. If AI tools are only affordable for wealthy schools, do you think that will amplify existing stereotypes or biases, for example, which students belong in advanced tracks? Essentially, how can we make sure that technological innovation is accessible to all?
Well, we know that technology is never neutral and that every AI system reflects choices made by designers, but also people that had something to say about it and about its construction. So what data to use, who counts as a typical user. And a very concrete example, thinking about the pandemic in the UK specifically, was this algorithm used to assign students their A-level grades, which systematically downgraded students from less affluent schools because it was trained on historical patterns that encoded existing inequalities. So that's the system working exactly as designed, and which is why ethics needs to be built in from the start, or a governance, a very clear one, not added as a later fix, because once certain assumptions are baked in, it's very hard to undo them.
I'm going to bring in the wider EU context here. In March of this year, the European Commission issued updated guidelines on the ethical use of AI and data in teaching and learning for educators. And the Council of the European Union also just adopted in April of this year the conclusions on teachers in the era of AI. Now, both stress the role of teachers who need to ensure that the human dimension of teaching prevails. So, Tobias, in this project that you coordinate, Teacher AI Complementarity, TAICO, the role of the teacher clearly is key. You're running pilots across 6 European countries. Could you tell us just a little bit more about the project? How are you going about exploring this complementarity between teachers and AI in practice? And what are some of your findings so far?
Yeah, we're running 7 pilots in 6 countries. In the use of AI in education. So could be, for example, the creation of learning materials by teachers, or when teachers monitor student learning in the classroom, either when they are learning individually or when they are learning in groups. And then also to guide students towards achieving learning objectives. Our teachers are school teachers, but also higher education teaching staff and also continuing education trainers. And our AI are educational AI, not those general purpose chatbots. So we are looking a bit more into more cutting edge AI that is really integrated in education. So, for example, are the tools transparent about their reasoning? Do they invite some kind of negotiation about pedagogical aims, for example? And then we look at task distribution, effects on teacher pedagogical reasoning and agency that teachers have in this process. And an important result, I guess, is that actually it's not maybe so much about AI literacy, what is nowadays called AI literacy, so to say, but more really about fundamental knowledge and skills of the teachers, like pedagogical knowledge, their content knowledge, and the way they reason with this in the classroom situation.
Thank you, Tobias, for that very comprehensive answer. Let's look at how this project plays out in practice. We visited one of the TAICO pilot sites in Krems, Austria, where a researcher, a teacher and a developer are working together on exactly this. Let's have a listen.
The University for Continuing Education in Krems, Austria, hosts forward-looking research in education technology. There, researcher Gerti Pishtari is involved in TAICO, a Horizon Europe project where teachers, developers and researchers develop AI tools that address real classroom needs.
We're looking how teachers and AI now, from, let's say, an agentic point of view, so humans, teachers and AI as technology, could complement each other. But also, and especially this is important, once we have this background, how we can go further now, how we can support this kind of environment so that this complementarity could really happen.
In practice, complementarity means moving beyond the traditional one-way AI tools with a simple but radical idea. An AI that follows teachers as they design their lessons and signals whether the design is matching the teaching goals.
A proactive system will understand what are the goals of the system, of the design of the teacher, check what the teachers are doing exactly to match those goals, and if there is a discrepancy, then inform the teacher that, look, you're trying to, or you're aiming to enable students to make analysis, evaluations, and some more creative work, but Nonetheless, what you are creating practically, it's just asking students to remember or to understand, so it doesn't go to that level.
Alexis Silvestri teaches digital media literacy to adult students, professionals who have returned to study. She had already been using AI in her teaching before Tycho, but her path to trusting it wasn't straightforward.
I was very skeptical about it. I studied artificial intelligence, so I know how the systems work, and I could not believe that a system that just works with probabilities could really help me. So I really tried it out and gave it a real chance. And at some point I saw the potential. That was when I really saw how it can support me in time-consuming tasks. Taking long text, a lot of information, and putting it in a format that is simple and catchy for the students.
Alexis' experience is not uncommon. That is why developing complementary systems involves understanding first why teachers and AI so often fail to connect. Florian Gnadlinger is the developer involved in the project.
There are different things that comes into account when teachers reject AI interfaces. Sometimes it's a lack of technological understanding, and sometimes it's also a lack of context information from the AI perspective. The AI system thinks it might help the teacher, but the teacher knows that this kind of information that is presented from the AI system isn't useful in the context where he or she would like to use it.
This two-way misunderstanding is exactly part of what Tycho is trying to address. Taking part in Tycho did more than give Alexis a new tool. It made her rethink the why and how she uses AI at all.
So talking with Gerd in the interviews and with Florian and participating in these workshops really made me think about the whole process, rethinking why I'm doing certain things, and especially what they're trying to do with really including the didactic knowledge, the didactic support, and taking decisions that are supported by what research gives us. That is something that they made me really think about. If somebody very new to AI in education would come to me and be unsure about it or be even afraid of it, then I would tell them to try it out, because that's the most important thing. If we don't try things, we don't know if they work.
For the Tycho team in Krems, the direction is clear.
Definitely, teachers cannot be replaced by AI systems because it needs much more than an AI system to be a good teacher. Systems cannot understand what happens in a teacher-student relationship. And we should definitely use this technology to support learners all over the world, but always in combination with the teachers who are the gatekeepers.
So Gerti, the researcher, talked about a proactive AI system there, a system that flags when a lesson design doesn't match a teacher's goals. A major concern of teachers and parents is that AI may gradually undermine critical thinking and cognitive capabilities, and researchers have been looking at the effect on our brains over time of, in effect, outsourcing our thinking to AI. Tobias, what are your thoughts on this? Will some groups be more disadvantaged than others? And how is this taken into account in the project? Can an AI-based tool, often used individually, strengthen the learner's ability to think critically or help students collaborate better with their peers?
Yeah, I think at least we are trying very hard. What I can say is that all our pilots, they emphasize higher order thinking skills, like problem solving, like collaboration, collaborative learning, and other related competences. So the scenarios definitely go beyond just drill and practice type of settings. So, for example, as Gerti explained, the tools might prompt teachers to include learning goals and higher order thinking when they are designing their lessons. And the tools should, in the end, strengthen the teacher's pedagogical and metacognitive reasoning and not undermine it. That is very important in our projects. And in other tools where it is more around classroom enactment, then also those tools have a very strong alignment between the models that the AI is using and the pedagogical knowledge of the teacher. For example, how is effective collaborative learning actually looking like? Or how to give good feedback to students, or how to guide students in developing self-regulated learning skills. So I think all of those things should contribute to not increasing the gap between those who are already good at things and those who are not.
Thank you. Niels, your reaction to what we just heard in the report, this co-design approach seems like a very promising model. What other valuable approaches have you come across in your own project?
I think co-design is one of the most promising developments we see across Europe. In my Reclaim Edu project, we're mapping what we call digital autonomy innovators. And so co-design efforts involving schools, researchers, public organizations that are trying to put education rather than tech companies back in the driving seat. At the same time, I should say we should be careful not to assume that co-design automatically leads to better educational technology. So co-design is a real strength when it gives teachers and students the chance to actually step back and ask, what kind of learning do we actually want to support in our technologies? And so another great example is the European Smart Schools project. And the acronym is SMASH, where educators in Germany and Belgium work together with researchers to rethink digital education in their classrooms so as to make technology more pedagogically meaningful and more socially responsible. And I think that's also a great direction for many co-design initiatives across Europe to develop towards.
Thank you, Niels. I'm going to turn to Diletta now. As I said in the intro, fewer than 40% of educators across the EU feel ready to use digital technologies in their teaching. So the first part of my question is, why do you think that is? And the second part of my question is about what your research has shown about the risk of AI reinforcing biases.
So teachers' wariness makes sense to me because most of the times they're only informed about all of this when it's done. So this also connects about the point on co-design that Niels was bringing up, because if you're included just at the very end and you just need to accept what is being, negotiated with other parties, then of course it's a bit more difficult. So I've just come back from a month of field work on an algorithmic system used by an European municipality to detect welfare fraud in a fair and non-biased way. And what I found is a confirmation that real risks aren't just technical biases that are baked into the data and the models, but they're governance failures. So why and how a system gets introduced, with what purpose, who's involved, how decisions are processed. And there's also a specific risk once these tools get adopted, which is automation bias, the tendency to overtrust a system's output, even when it's wrong. So you see where the cumulative harm builds up case by case from very different sources.
Your answer there really has brought back into the conversation this important point about accessibility, inclusion, and we can only be rigorous about this if we have robust governance. Niels, you're aiming to create a European digital autonomy framework. What's the relevance of developing a European digital autonomy in the educational sector?
It's important to realize that digital autonomy isn't mainly a technical issue, right? So it's really a democratic and an educational one. Schools have become increasingly dependent on these tech platforms, and these have an important sort of role to play in shaping everyday teaching and learning. And teaching schools have had very little say in how to design or what values they promote. And so for me, digital autonomy and for my project is about giving education that voice back. And so it's not just about replacing one platform with another or swapping a commercial product for an open source one. It is about giving teachers and students the chance to question and to shape, to redesign the digital environments they work and learn in. For example, there is in Denmark, there's the OS2 school platform, which shows sort of how a meaningful alternative to the bigger tech companies can also grow from within the educational community. And my hope with the European Digital Autonomy Framework is to connect such kinds of initiatives and to help them learn from one another and to strengthen this broader European movement towards more democratic and education-driven technology.
Now, as we slowly move towards the end of our conversation, I want to bring in again another issue not yet touched upon. I turn back to you, Diletta, if I may, and ask for a short reaction on whether this technology can really support a healthy work-life balance, as has been put forward. In other words, helping reduce the burden on teachers by taking on administrative tasks or helping support lesson planning, for example. Or does it risk adding a burden of, let's call it, tech management?
Well, the promise is real of freeing up time, but we need to be honest about it and about a specific risk, which is that if that freed up time isn't explicitly protected, institutions can simply use it to add more tasks. So it's not automatically a better quality of work. It has to be a stated goal with clear boundaries, because I deeply believe that this AI new revolution is touching upon some sectors that were already facing some difficulties.
Niels, can I come to you with a last point? We didn't touch upon the potential erosion of privacy rights through data collection, students and learners data collection. So what do we need to look out for there?
Privacy and data protection are absolutely essential. And so even now, when we see more European educational technologies emerge, schools and students still need to trust that their data is handled responsibly. And so the good news is that Europe already has a strong foundation with frameworks like the GDPR and the AI Act, for example. But for me, the bigger question still is, how can schools regain more control over the digital environments where education happens, where it actually takes place? And that's why I find many of these current European initiatives so encouraging. And so we're seeing schools, researchers, technology developers working together from the start, not only thinking about data protection or safety, which are key issues, but also about educational quality and public values. And another great recent example is an EdTech quality certification initiative in Zurich, which aims to help schools make better technology choices by encouraging developers to build tools that genuinely serve education.
Thank you. And here's a last challenge. In just one sentence, if you could name one thing that European policymakers should prioritise right now to achieve an approach to AI in education guided by the principles of digital humanism, ensuring technology serves people, supports human agency, and strengthens democratic values, what would it be? Let me start with you, Diletta.
I would say that principles are really important, but right now what institutions actually need is help turning them into practice.
Thank you. And for you, Tobias, what would you say that European policymakers should prioritise right now to achieve this goal of digital humanism?
Yeah, so I would say that policymakers could help establish and fund platforms such as the ones we have been talking about before, like co-creation and testing labs for AI solutions where stakeholders can come together and meet on a neutral ground. That would be, for me, a very important way forward.
Thank you. And for you, Niels?
Well, I have many wishes, but if I only could, mention one, I would say that policymakers should ensure that schools don't just adapt to all those technologies already out there, right? But to help shape it and support and connect all these many inspiring initiatives across Europe already emerging.
Fantastic. So that brings me to the end of this particular episode of Just Europe. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you with us and also our listeners. But did you enjoy being part of this podcast?
I did.
Yeah, very much.
A lot.
Of course, stay tuned for our next episode in the Just Europe podcast series. We've got some great content coming up for you. But for now, that's a goodbye from me, your moderator, Katrina Sickle, and look forward to the next time.
Just Europe.